We have multiple forms of breaking news today regarding NHL head coaching situations. The Washington Capitals have hired a new coach to replace Peter Laviolette, and we have breaking news in Nashville as well of their parting ways with head coach John Hynes and replacing him for another head coach. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here, Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, the coaching carousel continues to go here in the NHL. We finally have a little bit of news after having a number of days and weeks now of NHL coaching vacancies, and we know that there's all kinds of rumors and speculation on who's going where, and we have a little bit of more clarity on some of these situations now. The Washington Capitals have announced and confirmed that their new head coach will be Spencer Carbery. Of course, Carbery for the past couple of seasons has been an assistant coach with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he did a phenomenal job and was largely responsible for their strong power play. He was a PP coach as well as looking after the forwards. During his time there, the power play percentage increased by around 7% and held it up to be one of the top one or two power plays in the NHL for pretty consistently through the bulk of his time there, rivaling the power play of the Edmonton Oilers. So he's certainly more of an offensive specialist for sure. Obviously, this guy has put in his dues and as well earned the opportunity. He's got a long history in the Capitals organization. Prior to being an assistant coach with the Maple Leafs, he was 3 years as the head coach of the Washington Capitals AHL affiliate with the Hershey Bears organization. So he was also coach of the year there during 2021. In 3 years, he had a record of 104, 59, and 8. And of course, they do things a little differently in the AHL when it comes to the overtime stuff. So a phenomenal record, good run, coach of the year. He did have a year as well that he spent being a head coach in the OHL, coaching junior with the Saginaw Spirit team. He also was a 1-year assistant coach in the American Hockey League previously with the Bruins. So he's got a good mixture of assistant and head coaching experience there. Prior to his tenure with that, he was also affiliated with Washington in another capacity, where he, for 5 years, was the head coach of their East Coast Hockey League affiliate, the South Carolina Stingrays, where he actually played, and then after he retired, became an assistant coach for a short span, and then became their head coach. So he's been coaching a long time, ended his hockey career at a fairly young age and got into coaching immediately at the East Coast League. The Stingrays have had a lot of success under Carbery, and again, he was also, during one of those years, named Coach of the Year. He's actually only one of a couple of coaches that have ever been named Coach of the Year in both the AHL and the ECHL. So, he's, like I said, he's paid his dues. Coach at the East Coast League level, lots of success. Coach of the Year, American Hockey League level as an assistant head coach. Coach of the Year, has spent a few years as an NHL assistant coach, where he obviously thrived. With a forward role and power play role with the Leafs, and now he gets back to the Capitals again as a head coach. So in Washington, like I said, he's this all three levels of pro hockey that he's going to be end up working with Washington. Throughout much of the process, he was considered to be the favorite, or at least one of the favorites. It was pretty much down to him or Jeff Halpern, who they also wanted to speak with from the Tampa, who's been the head assistant coach there for a while. But a great hire, I think, in Washington, and they've done themselves a great service. If they want to be more offensive and kind of, reignite Ovi in his final few years and his contract and see if they can get back to being a playoff team, I think Spencer Carbery could be a really good asset to help along with that. And of course, Kevin Weeks just broke the breaking news here just shortly before I was getting ready to record the video on the hiring in Washington. We now have a coaching change taking place in Nashville. Of course, we know that in Nashville there's a change of the guard here at the GM level. David Poile is going to be stepping aside and becoming I guess you could say like a consultant or advisor for the next little bit, but Barry Trotz is taking over as GM. I think you could probably fair to say that Trotz is technically the GM now. I think he doesn't really officially have the full title and everything until July 1st when Poile's contract changes over. But at the same time, we knew this was Trotz's decision, and Barry Trotz was pretty clear that he was going to take some time and evaluate the organization, including the coaching position, to see what he wanted to do. We had heard rumors for the last number of weeks here that he had been talking to a lot of other candidates, and I think he was trying to decide and determine who else is out there and do we have a better option than head coach John Hynes. And that's ultimately what happened. I know some people have already kind of spoken out on social media saying, geez, it took long enough to hire a new coach here that might prevent John Hines from being involved for other coaching opportunities. And, to some degree, I understand the frustration, but at the same time, you can't make rash decisions. And sometimes teams, before they decide they want to replace somebody, they need to know what else is out there. And is there somebody that we feel might be a better fit than what we already have? Something they didn't like Hines, but is there a coach that they feel could help them get back to the playoffs next year and improve things? And obviously Hines had a decent run there. He became the coach of Nashville almost immediately after being let go from his previous head coaching role at the New Jersey Devils. Hines is a pretty well-respected coach, was in the Preds organization for about 3.5 years. He still had 1 year left on his contract. Originally got a 3-year contract, and then he was signed a 2-year extension, which, as I said, 1 year left on that. And so he's going to be moving on. And Andrew Brunette becomes the next head coach of the Nashville Predators. Of course, Brunette, a longtime player, of course, familiar with the organization from his playing days, was an assistant coach with the New Jersey Devils this past season. Prior to that, of course, he was the interim head coach with the Florida Panthers last year. After the Panthers won the President's Trophy but had an early playoff exit, they decided to go in a new direction, bringing in Paul Maurice, which that situation really left Brunette hanging a long time. I mean, if you remember last year, similar scenario with Brunette being let go. Like, Bill Zito took his good old time making a decision and hiring Paul Maurice, and Brunette was kind of left hanging there for a long stretch, a lot longer than this case here with Hines. So certainly, we've seen this before. Even in San Jose, when they had their GM change last year, they decided to make changes. That was really late into the offseason. So certainly, you hate to see this kind of situations arise, but it does happen. And like I said, they want to make sure they get their decisions right, need to take their time. Before being interim head coach in Florida, Brunette was there for a few years as an assistant coach under Joel Quenneville. And prior to that, he had worked with the Minnesota Wild between 2014 and 2019, had a variety of titles, including director of player personnel. He was even an assistant GM for a year or so, as well as an assistant coach. So certainly got started with Minnesota first, tried a variety of things. I think got the coaching bug, decided that was the direction he wanted to pursue more. Ended up in Florida, had some good success, but obviously not good enough to remain there beyond the interim gig he was able to get. And now he gets his first full-time head coaching job as a new head coach of the Nashville Predators. But he's certainly somebody who is familiar with Trotz, familiar with the organization, the city, and certainly I think somebody who could be helpful to make this team a little bit more offensive and see if they can get things turned around. Now, the team is not officially announced, at least as I'm recording this. I imagine the next couple of hours, by the time this hits YouTube, the team will likely have made an announcement regarding the coaching change. But according to Kevin Weeks, Hines is out, Brunette is in, and of course the Capitals have already made the official announcement on Spencer Carberry. So let me know your thoughts on these head coaching positions being changed or announced. Of course, there's plenty more open here around the NHL that we're still waiting word on, including the Rangers and, of course, Anaheim. And, of course, there's some GM vacancies in Pittsburgh and Toronto. So we're waiting to see how everything kind of plays out here. Should be lots more news likely here in the next week, especially in the GM spots. Teams want to get things together here before we get too close to the draft and free agency. A lot of big decisions to be made, and they can't push too much time more before they have to get those lined up. So let me know your thoughts on these, and we'll hopefully have more news to talk about soon regarding all the other vacancies. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.